That's a possibility. How about sending Jay Tusa, he's our executive director, a request, because he would be the one that would have to approve that.
Okay.
So it's jay@visitsouthwalton.com. Copy me, and we'll get it done as soon as you can.
Okay.
And we'll see if we can't facilitate that.
Okay, great. Thanks.
All right, great. Okay. Approval of the minutes. Everybody had a chance to read the minutes from our last meeting? Move to approve. Do we have a second? Second. Any discussion? No discussion? Any discussion from the public? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion passes. For the minutes. New business. First item is parking meters at county parking areas on Scenic Corridor. Our member Bob Sullivan brought that to us, so we'll let him speak on that. Bob?
Yes. Parking meters, interesting enough, are authorized by Chapter 20 of the Walton County Code of Ordinances, and I took the opportunity a month or so ago to talk to Commissioner Meadows on the subject. Like most of the commissioners, I think she sort of didn't react very well to the suggestion. But I think it's becoming a fact of life in Walton County that we're at the point where we have, as you all know, too many people, too many cars, and not enough places to park. And I think a benefit of parking meters, particularly along Scenic Drive, and probably a lot of places down on 38, that the use of a parking meter will move traffic and make more spaces available to people who want to come to the beach or shop or whatever. But I conducted a survey on Scenic Drive, and I can tell you this, that almost 50% of the cars that park in the 105 spaces that are available there around the rails there, more than 50% of them are locals who, A, work on the beach, vendors, lifeguards, restaurant employees, people who work in some of the condo offices, and they're in those parking spaces between 7 and 8 o'clock every morning, and they stay there until 5 o'clock every night. So if you take 105 spaces just along Scenic Drive there, and reduce it by 50%, you can see what happens. So what I am asking to do today is to just raise this as an issue and see if we can push it up through the TDC system to the point where somebody says, I think it's worth looking at things like what kind of parking meters, how much would they cost, how would they be financed, how would they be maintained and paid for, and things that are way out of the subject of this particular committee. But at least I would like to get it on the agenda and see if we can float it up through the system, and maybe a year from now or sometime DCC would have a discussion on the fact, on the idea of parking meters.
So what you're asking for is, let's recommend approval to conduct a feasibility, viability study on the use of parking meters at public parking spaces on Scenic Gulf Drive and possibly 38.
Yeah, in fact, I mean, it's probably on public parking spaces anyway, South Walton County.
South Walton County, okay. All right, will that include our large beach accesses, regional beach accesses?
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah, because I'm sure you have the same problem. I think if you go down there and take a look at that and pay attention to what cars are there, the first guys there every morning, the guy who said, yes, chips, and they're going to park there and then they'll stay there.
Right.
You know, so if it costs them $10 a day, probably an hour to stay there, they're going to find a
Right. So probably should say feasibility, viability study on parking meters and or parking fees at public parking spaces.
Well, parking meters and fees,
Right.
and or and.
Yeah, and fees. Okay.
I'll tell you right now, one of the things that when I brought this up to Commissioner Meadows, her first reaction to me was, oh yeah, and then we could give a discount to residents. And I said, no, Cindy, that's not the point. The point is the residents are already getting the parking spaces. You know, so
Yeah.
what we have to do is that if you want to go to the beach and park in one of the beach access parking lots, it's going to cost you $1 an hour. And to be quite honest with you, how many people spend more than 4 or 5 hours at the beach? If you get there at 8, you're
13 hours the other day. I mean, yeah.
We have to move your car. But what I'm saying is that the early morning people probably leave and go for lunch and they come back. But I think it probably is a two-shift kind of thing if you really look at it. Most people can't spend 8 hours. So at least I think it's something down the road, and we're probably the last beach in Florida that doesn't have parking meters anyway. So it's time to grow up, I think.
Any other comments?
Question, what type of monumental task would it be to ask local businesses to try and find some space for the employees to park and not?
The spaces are available, but they're not convenient. Are you familiar with Seascape? How big Seascape is developers? There are people who live on the north side of Seascape, up by Highway 8, who drive to the beach every morning rather than take the shuttle. I can walk on that, and every other car is going to Seascape parking sticker. People, they pack up the car, drive the car to the beach, and then drive back to the north side of the Seascape, and then they finish on the beach car. They've got a shuttle bus, they've got their own interior parking lot. It's not as convenient for parking as it's that, and that's what we're fighting.
So practically every business that is being, people are taking up the guest parking, it's about convenience. They do have parking in a lot of the businesses.
Well, the people who work in Majestic Sun and park on the beach can park in the parking lot behind Majestic Sun, but it's a longer walk than it is from the beach right in front of it. Those are the kind of things.
To answer your question, it'd be, take a lot of, it wouldn't be so hard to ask, but to enforce or make the change would be a little bit more troublesome. There are some.
Enforce is always the word. I mean, we can write all kinds of stuff in here, but getting things to be enforced is always good.
No, what you need to do, I mean, there are some resort communities that have taken that initiative and make accommodations during the summertime, but they really do it to benefit their own resort communities. They don't do it to benefit public space necessarily, so. I would think that part of the feasibility, viability study would be a section on how do we get people that are working here that are the long-term parkers for the day to have a different type of behavior that would also free up space. So the ultimate goal is to free up space for the visitor that's using the beach on a portion of day type behavior.
I think what you said is really important, that somehow we can, first of all, part of what we're supposed to be doing as a TDC is doing things that benefit the visitor, but that also benefit the community.
Yeah.
In other words, and have a good relationship with the community. I somehow feel like this is like almost discriminatory against the locals that say, okay, we're going to do this so we can keep the locals, because that's exactly what we're saying. Keep the locals out of these parking spaces. Now, if we're going to do that, I think the first order of business is to figure out where the heck are these people going to park. They got to find a different place. Well, I think that our parking problems go way beyond, it's just hard to find a space no matter who you are, what you are. So, if we can't figure out a way that they can park close to where they're working, then we got to figure out a way that they can park somewhere else and get there, not lay it all, say, well, you guys just.
The other side of that argument is that the parking meters are there, the locals and the employees will find the other places to park.
Yeah, well, the problem is I can't find the other places to park, and I am over there. So I don't know how they.
When you go to the beach.
I'm talking about any place. I mean, you should see my neighborhood. You should see my neighborhood. So I mean, there's people are parking places that they're not supposed to park already. So now we're going to create.
There's an article in this morning's paper. I don't know if you had a chance to see. Who's all talking about people parking their cars on the bike path and all kinds of things. But the question becomes, at some point, when you tell people what they have to do, then there has to be an enforcement. Just like the lady here said, you can't enforce the beach activities. You have a chance with the car.
There's enough local animosity towards the TDC that I don't think that I think this is the kind of thing that it's like squirting on your barbecue grill. You want to create more heat.
It wouldn't come from the TDC.
It is the TDC. Ultimately, the TDC, we recommended the TDC recommends the county commission, the county commission decides. All I'm saying is the TDC we're in the TDC right now, so we're making this, if we do this, the next step basically is to bring something to the TDC. I just don't think that the climate is conducive to that.
What if part of the study was a second round at parking needs assessment, like we did with AVCON a year and a half ago?
Yeah, and that was good, except we got, I mean, if you look at the net effect, the number of visitors versus the number of parking spaces we are creating, which are not yet even created, you know, that we're talking about, if nothing changes, if we just have the season like right now. I mean,
the solution is some large centralized parking areas.
I agree.
But I mean, I understand your argument, and I understand Bob's argument, but we got to do something. We can't continue to park on the side of the road indiscriminately.
When you're talking about centralized parking, Cindy Meadows brought up to me that she was thinking about building a 5-story parking lot on that lot across the street from Pocono Joe's. Aside from the fact that she would really upset the condo community that lived right behind it, it becomes the same thing. If you don't put parking meters in that garage, people are going to go in there and park their car for the 2 weeks they're here, or for the summer, or whatever. So it all boils down to you've got to move cars in order to provide more space for cars.
I understand the argument, and I understand what Kurt is trying to say. Lee has something to add.
He's right about the attitude.
Yes, ma'am.
This goes back to me in my mind, it's something I brought up a long time ago here, that never got me traction anywhere. I've talked to the TDC Advisory Council about it, I've talked to the BCC about it. There is not something that is going to solve our parking problem. There are some things. And this is why, first of all, the fact that we've been worried about upsetting tourists or upsetting locals or whomever is what's gotten us to where we are today. On many fronts, whether it's parking, traffic, beach activities, whatever. So instead of worrying about upsetting people, I think we need to hire professionals that understand transportation, that understand tourist destinations, highly populated residential areas, and can come in and look at all of the transportation issues and provide us with a master plan, transportation master plan, that can address all of this. So second, I worked at Macy's growing up, through high school and college. We were never allowed to park in the front parking spaces. We had to park in the back of the parking lot, and yes, we had to walk a good little distance to get to work. The fact that we would have employees and lifeguards parking in prime parking spaces, whether they're prime for tourists going to the beach and businesses or for locals going to the beach and businesses, is ludicrous. They should be, the businesses should be made, if possible, to provide them other parking, require them to park in other places. So that is a place where the TDC and the county could reach out to the business community and work with the business community to get, it's a cultural thing. Like, there was never any question for me at Macy's. That's just what we did. And I think every business in that entire mall did that with their employees. So that's part of the issue. Another thing is we are probably in an extreme minority, I agree with Bob, that we have such an intense and dense tourist destination and we do not charge for any parking anywhere. That is almost unheard of. If you've ever heard of the cost of free parking, the costs are tremendous. And we are experiencing them every day, but nobody can make that connection. So that's one of the things, not it, but one of the things that's causing it. So I think it is an interesting thing to look at. It is not against the locals. The locals can pay a parking spot just like a tourist can. I'll be honest, I live in Newport Beach in front of the Orange Street Beach access on the north side of 98. I drive down to that beach every time I go and park my car, because really the main reason, I used to walk to the beach before I lived there, but I don't like walking across the 98. But I will tell you, if I had to pay every time I go to the beach to park in those parking spots down there at that beach access, I would walk or ride my bike. It is human nature. So we've got to start thinking broader and bigger. We're not a sleepy little tourist destination that's a really cool place to live anymore. This is a huge tourist destination. We are attracting millions of people into a relatively small space, and even smaller stretch of beachfront every year. And so we've got to grow up, like you said, Bob, and start acting like a large tourist destination. Otherwise, we're going to continue to have this embroilment of frustration among locals and tourists. And the best tourists, the ones that we really want here, are going to stop coming over time. Not next year, and not the next year, and maybe not in 5 years. But over time, we'll see it degrade. And we're already starting to hear some of that and see some of that. So I think parking is just one issue. And then you've got all kinds of issues within parking, employee parking, beach access parking, local parking, whatever it is, parking, shopping parking, restaurant parking. And then you've got trails and pathways, and then you've got, roadways, and are they constructed properly, and do they work, and are they designed properly? Are there roadways that we don't have that we need? All of these things, building a parking garage somewhere is not going to solve it. You might have to build several, or you might not. But we need to bring in a professional transportation planning firm that can look at all of this. It won't even cost that much. $150,000, $200,000 for a county that has, I don't know, how big is the budget? $130-something million?
155.
$155 million. It grew significantly this year.
Yeah.
It's just not that much money, and it would pay such dividends, it would pay for itself over and over and over.
One time you actually talked about some guy that you communicated with, and then it seemed to me like we all agreed that we should head in that direction, and then the county was doing a parking study or transportation study of some sort, so it was like, well, we're not really going to do anything about this. But I agree 100% with you. The problem is bigger than it's the transportation, the traffic, where there should be lights and all kinds of stuff, or the bike lanes and on the roadway, all these things. But one of the other things that never seems to be thrown into this mix is reclaiming of the right-of-ways. My neighborhood, Blue Mountain Beach, the whole neighborhood there, they're county roads. We don't want them to be maintained. We let them get potholed and all that so people won't travel on them. We don't, but basically all of our right-of-ways are grown out, or on the Blue Mountain Beach Road, everybody got signs, no parking, no parking, no parking. 37 signs in about a half a mile, something like that. Anyway, so to me, if we really want, because people come and park all cattywampus, actually block, got to call the cops one day to be able to get through. So, if we could reclaim those, people, the beachfront people are privileged to live on the beach. I don't know why they should be so concerned about people parking on the road, but they all put up landscaping. It's nice people don't park in front of my house, but at the same time, it's not my property, the county could reclaim it, and that, so this should be part of the mix in there too, because there's lots of places where there are county roads that the right-of-ways are just basically taken over by the neighborhood.
Are you saying you want a parking meter?
I'll tell you, no, I would go, that would be fine if we did the parking meter thing. I just think that there's so many other issues involved, that it's like, okay, let's put parking meters in, like, that may solve a minute part of the problem. It's just, but it's like,
What he says.
the craft bar, when they first opened, it was like all employees were parking in all the space there, where we're going to create new parking spaces and spend hundreds of thousands of dollars so that we can create employee parking. I don't know, I said something in a meeting, but a couple of days later, they were not doing it. They were parking back behind, which is, once again, the business community, trying to get them involved, the business community basically does everything they can to avoid changing the parking requirements for new buildings or for, even if the hurricane blows it away, no, we want to build it bigger, so we, so I think the problem there is that trying to get the business community to cooperate. I mean, there are some, obviously, I don't know where Red Bar's people park. They used to park up there next to the hardware store. They may still be doing it there, I don't know. But businesses do need to accommodate their employees for parking one way or another. I think it is their responsibility. But if we have no place to park, and that's my point, obviously, we don't, if the places aren't there, it's not like find a place to park. So that's the other
Goes
side.
back to Lee's comment about it's multifaceted issue. It's not just parking meters, it's not just one parking down. Mary Lou, you got something you want to
I
add?
just want to say, the most congested area is Seaside. Their employees, all of them, are required to park at the school and have a shuttle. If they are caught parking in Seaside, their employer is fined $45. Not the employee, but the employer.
Yeah.
I mean, holy smoke.
No, I mean,
So it's all about education and management. These people in the Justice Center need to tell their employees, you need to park over here, you cannot park
It is.
over
you know, Coach right, it's an employer
Yeah.
cultural change on how they want to do it. You know, ironically, Craft Bar's reason for parking over there was to make it look like there was people at the restaurant.
Wow.
That's a very common practice. Businesses do it all over
Or a
Atlanta.
couple of restaurants.
They don't have customers, they'll have their employees move their cars to the front.
Yeah.
That attracts people in. I mean, it's very
Yeah,
common.
so once again, you know, it's all a cultural change of, you know, what do we do? And, you know, some of it's actually land development code change on, you know, parking spaces required per type of business and all that. You know, some of it's gonna be very hard change, but, okay, so Bob started with parking meters, we morphed into transportation study with multifaceted areas we need to have considered. Okay?
Not just insert, am I correct that when they did the parking study where we had I do the parking contractor a couple of years ago, was one of the recommendations parking meters? In that study?
They had a couple of recommendations. One of them was a change to how right-of-way parking is allowed. Right now, you can park anywhere you want to unless there's a no parking sign. And so their recommendation was to change it to no parking unless there is a formal parking area to park in. Okay, county did not accept that recommendation. They accepted portions of it.
My question was, were parking meters a recommendation? I'm only saying that we might be able,
I'd have to go back and look at it, but I think there was some discussion about parking meters.
we might be able to just pull that into this discussion as we set the forward.
I think really what we're talking about here today is not just another parking needs assessment, but really a comprehensive transportation study that will then give a recommendation or considerations for the different things that affect transportation. And transportation are parking fees, multimodal types of transportation, and so I think today we need to decide is, do we want to float a motion to move to the TDC for consideration to recommend to the BCC that a comprehensive transportation study be started, and maybe it is a preliminary study that identifies exactly what areas need to be included, and then that morphs into an actual transportation study. But so I think today we started off with one component of it, and we've now realized that we need to really consider more than just that one component. And so I think that's what needs to happen. Somebody needs to make a motion that says, recommend for approval to the TDC that they consider approval and recommendation to BCC to consider a transportation study for South Wall.
Transportation, parking, how did you?
Yeah, I would really like to throw that parking.
Yeah, okay.
That's for transportation. transportation plan, it includes all that.
Yeah.
And paid parking might be one thing that could be implemented very quickly. But the great thing about a master transportation plan is that, in a real analysis and study is that they'll look at, are there unintended consequences of that might not be desirable, and if so, how could those be addressed so that you don't just do a patch or a Band-Aid that then all of a sudden creates other problems. Maybe it would, maybe it wouldn't.
Yeah.
But they can look at that. But that could be one of the first, because that is one of the easiest and one of the least expensive things to implement.
So the word transportation means things moving, the word parking means things not moving.
Yeah, but as you move, you have to park.
It's all related.
But what I'm saying is that I would like at least the recommendation to include moving and non-moving traffic issues.
Yeah.
Okay.
Parking.
Traffic, parking, transportation.
Transportation and parking, yes ma'am.
What's the source of the study that has been done and is out there floating around? The
That's
10-year plan that includes shuttling people from satellite lots down to the pyramid.
No ma'am, well, the first one, the most recent one was called the Avcon, that's the company that did it. They're an engineering firm out of Niceville. They did what's called a parking needs assessment. So they took the different sections on Scenic Gulf Drive and Highway 38 and developed areas where parking could be implemented. And the county, they also offered up some other recommendations that would change behavior in how parking's done now. The county accepted some of it, and then they prioritized the different areas into a 8 area short list. And they had Walton County Engineering, Public Works put a probable opinion of cost on that. And then they accepted those. And then they told the TDC to fund it and go build it. And so of those 8 areas, there were 2 that were combined. One of them dropped out because we didn't own the property. It was property we were leasing that has been now leased to somebody else on a long-term lease. And so there's 5 areas left that have been, the 60% plans got approved on June 12th. We'll have 90% plans August 9th for approval, and then we'll put it out for RFP for construction and build it October, November, December. So starting next season, we'll have approximately 260 spaces that are in different locations on 38, and a couple of them off 38. Highway 83 South, Blue Mountain Beach Road has some on it, so that's not on 38. Eastern Lake Road, we're off right there. There's spaces down there that are on. And going up Highway 393, directly across from Gulf Place, would be a mirror image of what they have on that side of the road. There's about 20 spaces there. The rest of them are on 38.
Like grading, grading.
Yeah, there's a bunch of them on the new, we're relining the bike path on from 283 headed east.
But even when you turn into grading, that's another bunch.
Also, we turn into grade next to the Regional Utilities lift station corral. There will be some spaces right there. So
a lot of those spaces are already being used for parking.
yeah,
So it's not, we're not really creating 200 and some spaces, we're just,
It doesn't solve any of the problem that I tried to bring up, because all we're doing is creating workspaces for more people to stay in all day.
more places to put parking meters.
I agree. I agree.
That's
But I think the discussion we've had today is that yes, parking meters are a viable solution to do what you say, which keep traffic moving. Recognizes there might be some unintended consequences, and then further discussion, revealed that we really need to look at all this in a comprehensive manner. And I don't think that asking the TDC to take on a full-blown comprehensive transportation study is going to be palatable to them. But I think that starting what would be considered a preliminary transportation study would be palatable and would move forward. So I think that we ought to, if we're intent as a committee to move this forward, then we need to make a motion that we would ask consideration of TDC to recommend approval to BCC to do a South Walton preliminary transportation study. And the preliminary study would be, I don't know if they would want for us to identify what areas we want, or if the TDC would want to identify, or does the preliminary study bring in a consultant to tell us what we need to
I
include?
recognize that parking meters are a dirty word, but I think at this point, at some point, as Lee says, we gotta be big enough and grown up enough to be able to say the word, like politicians do. We don't want to say certain words, but the certain word is, the only way we're going to be able to improve and control the parking that goes on is to implement a system that makes people move.
I agree.
And rotate.
I agree.
And that's called parking. So
I agree.
why don't we just make this simple, if you agree, that we just start this game with a thing called, let's do a comprehensive study on whether or not parking meters in South Walton County would improve parking and the flow of traffic for both residents and visitors.
Is that your motion?
I just did. I made a motion to say that. Did you come?
Could you go one more time?
Okay. We request that the TDC authorize a study to determine whether or not the use of parking meters in South Walton County would result in improvement of the parking situation for both residents and visitors.
Everybody understand the motion? Do we have a second?
All right, we must have modified the motion. I don't disagree with you, but if we don't just bite one piece of the apple and get something to move, nothing's going to happen. Because you saw what happened with the parking thing. We are 2 years later.
Well, but the problem with the parking study is that it was a very, very limited scope, you know that.
It was a simple
Very
meeting.
limited.
Well, I don't mind having a general transportation study for Walton County, but if we focus on public parking lots and how we increase the use of parking lots for guests and residents, and not employees and lifeguards and vendors and those kind of things. If we don't identify what we're after, it's not going to happen. And it's going to bloom into one of these things where everybody's going to be involved, and I want this and I want that. And parking meters will be down at the bottom and everything.
All right.
So you put 50 cents in, you get 2 hours.
Okay.
What happens, you put 50 cents in, you get 2 hours.
Well,
So what happens when
you
the
know,
2 hours up?
I don't know.
Is somebody going to tell you to wait?
I don't know what it is. When you get into parking meters, you have to finance them. So parking meters have to be self-sustaining. That means that the meter maid, the meter person, and the people who collect the money, and the people who maintain the meters, and the salt air line, and what kind of meters, use credit cards, use coins, use tokens, all those things have to be studied. So, and that's what I want somebody to come back and say it's viable, it's not viable, and this is the way we should use it. And you can go to 7-Eleven and buy it, it's worth $20 and put it in a parking meter or whatever. But that's what we need to study. And if we bury that, there's something else about whether or not we should buses, trains, elevated, railways, or whatever. It's never going to get there. So I would just ask that maybe someone would second this motion and we move it up to see what other people have to say.
And what do you think the funds from the money was
From the parking meters.
Where's it going to? Where's the money going to?
Okay?
Where does the money go that the people put in the meters?
Because that would have to be an organization that would maintain that. And that could actually be private, I guess, but I don't know the answer.
Okay.
But you fund the system itself, there's a cost to having to pay parking, and anything left over goes to transportation improvements.
Well, 50 cents for 2 hours.
Okay. We got a motion on the table. We got a motion on the
People
table.
don't even carry 50 cents.
Bob.
I would say 5-hour limit, $5.
I mean, I could go for this motion if we're gonna make a motion to do both, to recommend both, 2 separate motions if you leave them. I just think we keep taking bites and it just, we're dead in the water.
All right.
I don't disagree with you, but I mean, you watch the BCC can't deal with big bucks. They never pass the parking orders. too complicated. Let them do a little something that they feel and touch and do something.
Okay, we have a motion on the table. Do we have a second? All right, lack of a second, do we have an amended motion?
Yeah.
I mean, I made the motion, what, May 7th? If it's 2015, I'll do it again.
Exactly the same.
Just
motion.
what?
I will make a motion that we recommend to the TDC Advisory Council that they, I guess, recommend to the BCC, is that the appropriate motion, to hire a professional transportation firm to do a master transportation plan for Walton County. And we can even say, with a
Emphasis on.
emphasis on or first priority on a paid parking study.
Okay. Does everybody understand that motion?
I'll
So you have a second, okay. I'm assuming we have all discussed this now. Is there any discussion from the public?
Go for it.
See minor discussion, we accept it. All in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion passes. Make sure we get it on the TDC agenda for the August meeting. Okay, second item, new business. Last meeting, I asked y'all to review the Waterways and Beaches Activities Ordinance in recognition that there will be some consideration by TDC and BCC at the end of this summer season to consider changes that will correct some of the behavior we're having this year in regards to waterways and beaches activities. Does anybody have any items that they think would be worthy of revision within that ordinance? Yes, ma'am.
I read the first edition,
Yep.
under section 2231, horses, dogs on the beach.
Yep.
Number E, nothing in the section shall be interpreted to apply to a property owner of the sandy area next to the mean high tide, which could interfere with a property owner's rights to have their own dog or horse on their property.
Correct.
Are horses allowed on the beach?
Horses are allowed on the beach. Now,
Behind horses, I thought they were not allowed on the beach. So if you want a girlfriend now, she can have a horse on the beach.
well, I believe they're actually constrained by other portions of the Land Development Code that contain restrictions against what are considered agricultural pets.
Okay.
Doesn't it fall under customary use?
So they have to have
The
a
Indians had horses.
The horses, to be honest with you, is a leftover from a long time ago. And, but in most of the communities that are, land uses that are on the Gulf front areas, they contain restrictions, that you cannot have, agricultural type animals on your property.
So pigs and goats are not okay, but horses are.
Well, I think horses are also contained in that, but I'd have to research it all to make, the way you're saying is that horses should be omitted from that section of the ordinance?
I don't think they should be
Okay.
allowed to have a horse on the beach now.
Okay, you keeping a list of these? Okay. All right. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take what y'all offer today and in the near future, and I'm gonna compile it with a list of recommendations that I will take to the TDC, who will then, sort, approve, whatever, and then that'll go to the BCC for final consideration and then possible amendment to the ordinance. Okay? So keep in mind now that the way that is best done is it has a public hearing for each section. Because if you make it too broad, then you invite more discussion than is probably necessary or required. So it might be more than one public hearing, or it could be including, just these sections. But the more specific you make it on what the public hearing is about, then the more you can stay focused on that. Otherwise, everybody will come in and try to change everything from, 1 to 60. So,
2254, number G1, it said at the very last 6, it says obstructions also include fences, ropes, chains, or signs, unless properly permitted by county, state, and federal agencies as appropriate.
Okay. Are you looking at the previous ordinance, or are you looking at the new amended ordinance? Because that was amended last month.
Okay.
It's still on municipal code.
I am looking at the one that y'all gave us to.
My bad. Okay.
It was still
That
there.
that one has been amended,
Okay.
and that is the one that went under public hearing on June 12th. And they changed it, and we have now sent out notices to the Gulffront property owners via certified mail. They have until July 15th to become in compliance. And we will then start enforcement action. Now, it will be done by code enforcement personnel. You know, right now, we pick up leave no trace items under the obstructions clause, but we limit that. We do it with our beach maintenance crews, but we limit it to what's called traditional beach equipment. And that's items that are between the toe of the dune and the water's edge. It has been determined through discussions with the legal department and in the public hearing that since posts, ropes, and signs and fences are typically boundary markers, and then we have to also abide by statute 810 trespassing rules. That would be done by code enforcement, and it would be handled in a traditional property-based code enforcement effort. Okay.
So is the one that was on our tables, is that the new amended one, or is this?
I don't believe it is amended. What does it say? Where's it?
What section?
Chapter 22, or when an activity let's see if that will change. It looks like
It's not. This is the,
This is what we were told last time to.
right. Yeah.
The obstructions on the beach, it says obstructions also include fences, ropes, chains, or signs unless properly permitted by the county. That's the new language, or is it?
Hang on.
Is the old language?
Hang on.
They looked at, I think it's the ordinance. I don't know what they changed, but it's, we're never supposed to be.
Whatever, we understand that word.
One other thing, Brian, under beach vendors, 5, each vendor shall have a trash receptacle.
What number was that, Mary Lou?
This one here,
That you're talking, yeah.
22-60 beach vendors. Each vendor shall have a trash receptacle on the site and shall at the end of each business day be required to ensure all trash resulting from operations within a distance of 100 feet measured in any direction and removed from the beach. Are they doing that? I don't think they're doing it right.
The specific place vendors do it. The delivery vendors are not required to do it.
Okay.
The one we're looking at here is the amended ordinance for obstructions.
So the new one here. This is amended?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
On the beach vendors, where are the white posts in this language? Aren't the white posts under?
The white post, the PVC post that have a L horizontal arm, since they are located now at the toe of the dune, they would not fall under this section, because this section refers to, it says on the beach, so you have to go back and look at the definition of what is the beach. The definition of the beach is toe of the dune or line of permanent vegetation to the water's edge.
So what are those posts that say vendor that are?
Those are our vendor delineation posts, and so they delineate the vendor zones on public beaches. So you'll find those, we have 2 types of public beaches. We have public beaches that are regional beach accesses, where we are the upland property owner, and then we have public beaches that are seaward of private property, or they have private property, upland property adjacent to them. And the reason why we have that distinguished is because we have a clause in our ordinance that says, paragraph 2260D8, that any commercial vending on public beaches that are seaward and contiguous to private upland property, they must have the private upland property's written authorization to vend. So that's why we have that distinguished between those 2 types of beaches. And so the vendor zones were created to restrict the vendor to a certain area of the beach. The general public has use of any area of the beach, but what this does is it gives the casual visitor that wants to bring their own gear the opportunity to come down and have, be able to get waterfront seating if, provided there's not already other public in that area.
Okay, so it's not a side-to-side thing, because in my experience, beach estates, Walkover, and Seabreeze, there's 3 of those posts.
Yes, ma'am.
To the right, let's say, of the Walkover. And I thought that let's say, farthest eastward one would be the farthest eastward that the umbrellas and chairs can be set up, because here's the Walkover, and people walk down Walkover and they're smacked with the umbrellas and then the chairs, instead of like a clear path. So I'm wrong. There's no such thing as like a...
Which access you're talking
Beach
about?
Estates, I think it's called. The Seabreeze subdivision has 2 public walkovers, one by Emerald Waters and one, I think it's called Beach Estates. I should have looked better, but, and there's 3 vendor poles in front of the houses to the west of that walkover.
At Gulf Lake Beach Estates?
That's it.
Okay, yeah. What you see there is actually 2 vendor zones. There's a 4th post a little bit further down.
Okay.
So when you come down off that access, there's a vendor zone right there when you come off. Okay, so the access, if you think about it, it's a flag shape access, beach to the west. Vendor zone right when you come down.
Okay.
And then there's a free space, and then there's another vendor zone. And so there should be 4 poles, one on each side of each vendor zone. However, we have been recently notified that the second vendor zone to the west needs to be removed. Somehow, somewhere between last year and this year, the people now own to the main high water line, whereas they didn't before. I just discovered this yesterday.
Brian, I've seen a couple of those. On section 2261, public beach parking, are there 105 parking spaces between the Tom Thumb and Surfside, parallel parking? Is that considered part of TDC's parking?
That is just general right-of-way public parking. It's not part of our parking space.
You don't maintain that?
We do not maintain the parking area. It's actually Public Works. I do maintain the bike path adjacent to it.
I want to tell you that Captain Rao told me recently that code enforcement from the beach could enforce the parking on this.
We did go through a class that allows us to issue parking tickets. However, since our department is completely wrapped up with beach-related code enforcement activity, and we don't have immediate access to the computer-aided dispatch where we can run tags, I have determined that it's not a feasible, good use of our efforts.
Just let me ask this question. Do those parking spaces fall under the term public beach parking in this regulation?
Well, they're not at a regional beach access, so I define public beach parking as parking that is associated with a regional beach access.
And those public beach accesses in front of the Majestic Center are not?
They're actually not like the area around Wellsdale is not it's not a county-owned beach. It's a beach that we have an easement associated with a development order.
But that doesn't extend over into your enforcement.
I mean, it does as in beach-related activities. I mean, but it's the same as the beach in front of Seaside. So I'm saying, in other words, there are rules that pertain to private beachfront property. And it's the same there. So there's a little bit different in it.
What caught my eye is somebody, the county just put up signs that say no overnight parking.
Right.
And it says no overnight parking or blocking of parking spaces permitted, and TDC maintains beach access So who's enforcing that, low overnight parking?
We enforce it in our regional beach access parking lots.
No, yeah, I'm talking about the signs that are in front of Cedar Park.
Public Works install those signs, and it would be the sheriff's responsibility to
Sure.
enforce that parking. Just like it would be on any other county maintained right-of-way. Okay?
Yeah. Last year, when the year before, particularly last year, you made recommendations to the TDC, and then the TDC made those same recommendations to the BCC regarding the beach vendors particularly.
Correct.
And your plan included basically the regional beach accesses. And I suggested adding Great Beach because I consider that a
Right.
good thing. So that basically is 8 of those. And your recommendations were the things that I felt like were particularly important in the changes you were making was some things that I think that really could be better. Under equipment, be stored at the boxes at the bottom of the dune, basically. I actually don't think they should be there either. I think they should. I think all the stuff should be uplanked. I think that this is like this is almost semantics in some way by the toe of the dune. For the toe of the dune, depend on how far up. They're not supposed to be up in the dune, how far down. I just think it should be, and I actually think that if we did the regional beach access plan as you described last year, where you have a single vendor for each regional beach access, then the county could actually construct storage. That would be their storage, would be part of the program with whoever was contracted for that regional beach access. It seems to me that there's a lot more complaining about, the fact that the vendors go down at 7 o'clock and basically fill up their space with people who have reservations.
Right.
The problem is that it prevents the public from having access to those spaces. So by having a single vendor, the idea was that you could set them up as the people came.
Right.
Which to me makes total sense because A, it's a public beach. I'm not saying the other people aren't public that are going to show up there at 10 or 11 maybe, but all that, they've taken that space. Basically, the vendors have rented the prime space on the beach for profit, which being a public beach, I don't think that's right. I think that we have to have equal access for other visitors and for residents, for people in the neighborhood that want to go to the beach. I have to get up at 7 o'clock to go to sit on the beach because the vendors are going to. That to me, this needs to be part of what we recommend again this year. That the single vendor for each regional beach access. I think that every vendor that's a viable vendor should get a cheap crack at the business if they meet all the other requirements the vendors have to have.
Right.
And we should not make it onerous if a small guy wants to do it, if there's some way to assist that,
So what you're saying is we should go back with the beach management plan that was floated 2 years ago.
And last year too, they didn't even vote on it last year, if I remember.
They considered it, but they said that they felt that 2015 had less complications than 2014, and so they wanted to see what happened this year before they considered any more changes.
This thing about speculative setups, I think you had 20% of maximum allowable setups. I don't think there should be any, but maybe have 2, maybe one on the front and one back behind to have them set up. If I were a beach vendor, I mean, not well, I don't know. I'm not a beach vendor, so no, it's not germane. But that plan to me was exactly what we need to do, except for I don't think we should have the speculative. Let's say a couple, because let's say even if you stored, let's say we had in my world a perfect situation. We have a single beach vendor. We have all the storage up above. They'd have their place where people come and pay up above. Mm-hmm. They could schlep all their stuff down to the bottom of the dunes based on the reservations they have, but just not set them up. I think it'd be labor saving. I think there's all kinds of upsides to that vendor. Now, how do you make it equitable for the vendors to get a shot at that business? The other thing about that, then the vendors wouldn't have to worry about 50% here, wherever. They set up the chairs where the customer wants the chair set up.
Yeah.
And if there's space on the beach, they set it up on the beach. If there's not, they get the next best space. I mean, that's the way a public beach should be run. If we can't do it that way, then we shouldn't even have vending, because all we're doing is serving a privileged class that reserved the spaces and got the front row seats, and that to me is discriminatory.
Yeah.
That's problematic.
Okay.
So,
What you're talking about is fine tuning a beach management plan.
Just for Drake Beach though, right?
no, I'm for saying all the regional beach access.
Any of them.
And for example, I just take, because I live on Blue Mountain Beach, there's a regional beach access. And there are 3 neighborhood beach access. Literally, I'm fortunate to live there, I mean, I got 3 to go to. But I think the same vendor could vend to those there because they're literally within walking distance, or he could drive down, whatever. The other part of this with the no driving on the beach, I think is important. The vendors, we should not have vendors driving on the beach at all. And even in Great Beach, we shouldn't have them. Shouldn't be driving on the Great Beach anymore anyway, but that's a whole other discussion. But what I'm saying is there's no reason for vendors to be driving on the beach except because the guys that come to our neighborhood and do the neighborhood, they schlep them down there, they put it, you know.
Your chair slingers.
So, I mean, that's the way to do it. You know, I'm thinking if I'm one of these guys setting up beach chairs, I go set them up at 7 o'clock in the morning, where do my tips come from? But if I'm setting them up for the guys, I'm gonna give the guy 10 or 20 bucks for setting up my chairs, right? I mean, almost everybody could. So I think, you know, I think there could be a real good business model for a beach vendor. And it would get, if we talk about destination improvement, that would be an immense improvement that would not cost us anything unless we did the facilities to accommodate, which I still think is a good idea. That way, if you have a vendor, say give him a 3-year agreement or whatever it may be, if he does the job, you know. But if he doesn't, you own the space and whatever.
The beach management plan will once again be presented. They told me the first year, come back at the end of the year with all your data and your recommendations, and we'll consider it. So that is already, you know, in the list of things to be done. What you need to do is, you know, I like your ideas. Send me a quick email with your fine tuning, and I'll include that. You know, we'll have some more discussions between now and then. You know, before it goes to them, we'll have a fine-tuned beach management plan that can be looked at. Not to say they'll take all of it, but at least it'll be up for consideration.
Well, part of that is, as I remember 2 years ago, it was too late to do much, and then you tried to get the vendor thing going, but it was kind of half-assed, basically. It didn't all work out well, and you fine-tuned it, you know, and I think it did work better, you know, but it's not the answer. And I think that you know that that's not the answer. That's why you recommended this. The TDC knows it's not the answer. So what we're doing, the answer is to make the public beach public and make the vending be something that's truly a service. That, you know, I mean, I think that we need the vendors. Don't get me wrong. I think we need vendors to satisfy the needs of our visitors. But we don't need them all set up there for the guy who's going to show up at 10 and whatever it may be. We just need to do it in a fair and equitable way.
Okay.
I can tell you, I think in my view, for the beach, I have 2 umbrellas in front of me that had names on. We were there from 9 to 5. Those people never showed up. That should not be allowed. By far the largest complaint, by far the largest complaint is the speculative or ghost set that people have to, you know, sit behind, and you know by far that's the largest complaint. Yeah.
So you know, I receive the complaints, the county commissioners receive the complaints. I believe that there will be some heavy consideration for some changes to how the beach vendors are managed for going into the 2017 season.
I agree with everything Kurt said, by the way, so I don't know if I need to type all that up too, but if I do, it might be helpful to share it back, so I know we can. But,
what I'll do is at our next meeting, I'll share with y'all what my list is. We're doing. Me and Jay have already started, you know, talking about this. We know the importance of getting it taken care of very early, so that.
I commend you for starting this early. I think this is great.
You've done a great job.
I did have a question. Are you aware if there's any county-owned property in Walton County where private enterprise is hired to provide some service on it. I don't know if there is. I just keep thinking, just a little bit of further support for your RFP suggestion, which I agree with 100%. I just can't imagine, let's say, we opened up a state park for vending, which I think has happened in some places, maybe not necessarily in Walton County, I don't know. I cannot imagine that it would just be a free-for-all for the private companies just to come in and
No.
vend and
No,
all
what it would
that.
be-
I would think they would do an RFP and select
Yeah,
vendors.
there's two ways to do it. There's really what would be considered a land lease. So in other words, you lease your land with stipulations on how that land is to be used, okay? That's one way to do it. The other one is truly a RFP for services, where we develop a plan of what we want done, and then we put out an RFP for services. It'd be simple, it'd be equitable to a cleaning contract, okay? I want my building clean, give me a bid for it. I want my beach service with beach equipment, and it has to be set up like this, give me a bid to do that, okay? So the first scenario of the land lease, of course, takes a lot of burden off of us as to what we have to do, because all we do is we say, okay, companies, y'all give us a bid for what you'll lease our land for 180 days, 360 days, whatever it is. For you to use our land, you're allowed to set up your equipment like this, and you have to run your business, or these are the components of your business that have to be included. And that would be...
Here are the rules.
Right. In other words, you can't set up all the way across the front. You have to set up, I've got a couple of different scenarios. You can have 2 sets of chairs and umbrellas together, and you gotta leave 6 foot of space. You can have 2 more, they gotta be staggered, by 10 feet. You can't set up more than X amount of spectative sets. You have to have a tenant on duty. So there's different ways to do that. And so you have to, once again, first you have to get the powers to accept that there has to be some sort of beach management plan. And then they would say, okay, Brian, or committees, what do you think the best way to do it? And we would offer a recommendation on that. And then they would say, okay, that sounds good. And then they weigh several different aspects of it. It's not just what we think is good. They have to weigh what's good for the industry, what's good for the locals, what's good for the visitors, and all that. And so in the end, we would hopefully have something different than what we have now, which is sort of the free-for-all. We have restricted them to one area of the beach, but it's still kind of a free-for-all. They're allowed to come down and set up. There are some rules and regulations. Unfortunately, they're a little ambiguous and not as specific as they could be. And so I also expect that there will be some specific language added that will help us. Because part of the problem is Brian, why can't you go down and enforce that? Okay, well, the code, we have to enforce it as the code is written. One case in point, reasonable distance from the water's edge. Okay, what's a reasonable distance from the water's edge? To you is 20 feet, for the vendor is 10 feet. You know what really dictates it? Is I don't want somebody else to set up in front of me. That's what dictates it. So anyway, to continue this discussion about waterways and beach activities ordinance, keep in mind that I do have the vendor section recommendations that we'll be bringing forth at our next meeting. I'll share those with you. They'll be in a more concise form, and then we can add to it and all that. So,
I have a stupid question.
okay.
I got to the beach on Saturday at 8:05 in the morning. Completely solid umbrellas.
Which beach were you?
Great beach.
Okay.
On my Jeep on the beach, no place for us to go at 8:05. And I know that a lot of the locals set up their stuff and then they go have breakfast and come back. How are they driving on the beach before 8 o'clock in the morning when it's turtle season?
They're doing it in against the law or out of compliance with the ordinance.
It's crazy.
See, one of
And
the
I gotta say, I got heartburn, and I know that it can't be helped, but driving across that far now, kids playing in it, dogs playing in it, cars going across, big those trailers going across that outfall. I know you can't help it, but I got a real hard time with that.
Yeah. I saw it this weekend. If you noticed, the trough had moved down in that area, that's why they were doing it. I was on there on Monday in there. I didn't see any boats launching, or there weren't any trailers there at 9 o'clock. So it led me to believe that no boats had gone out that day. The cones were still there, so somebody had marked it out down there. They mark it out every morning, and that's part of their, in their section of ordinance that they mark out the load zone every morning.
Who marks it?
One of the charter boat captains, I guess
He
they,
picks the spot.
But on
Yeah.
Saturday morning, the Gulf water was flowing into the lake. For people to run across that,
Saturday morning, it had come across the sandbar.
where's that beach?
Really?
Yeah.
The western lake.
What happens if it busts open and they're on the other side?
Yeah, they did stuff.
Well, I know, but didn't it?
It's exactly right. They're going to have to wait for it to go.
I watched your truck get stuck at Eastern Lake, one time when it just, and he's in the middle of it and it happens,
I need to say something about the beach permits too, because we were parked over at the very western edge, and there were people past us, says no vehicle, tourists with no beach permits coming down the road and stuff off. There was nobody down there enforcing that. I talked to a guy that owns a house in Drayton Beach, and he charges an extra $300. He will send your beach detail to on the beach.
He's not allowed to do that. If we catch him doing it, he'll lose his permit.
I suggest they put some kind of QR code or some kind of code that the cops can scan real easily, just to make sure that they're legit, because I can guarantee you that's on the house.
When I was down there on Sunday and Monday. I was at Great Beach State Park on Saturday. But I was on at Graydon Dunes. Both days I saw sheriff's people on four-wheelers checking permits.
Okay.
Our guy was on there. We had people on both days working. We had mainly vendor issues we had to deal with at different locations, but we did, I have to go check and see, but I think we gave some permit violation, driving permit violations to
That
people.
needs to be educated. People need to know that they're doing that, so they'll stop trying to do it.
Well, they do know we do it, and they just simply choose. I mean, I was sitting next to a guy, that didn't have a permit. My wife asked me if I was going to do anything, and I said, well, no, I'm in my bathing suit and
Right.
have a cold beer in my hand. And so, but I did call our code enforcement guys and say, hey, I'm observing some non-compliant behavior down here.
Would you do me a favor and call code enforcement? I'm seeing more and more of those wing feathers come back, and they're against code.
What's that?
Oh, you mean on 38? You mean on street side? Sure.
I told Cindy Meadows, and she said, no, they're against the code, but nothing else happened. But they're expensive to buy, and I'm seeing more and more realtors are buying them now for open houses, and I need to stop that. 'cause
What
they're
did you say?
Wing feathers?
It's the big
Okay.
They look like kites.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Have you met the new code enforcement manager?
No, no,
His name is Bill Williams.
I hear he's wonderful.
Give him a call. He'll probably jump right on that.
622-0000.
I'm not sure what the number is, but,
Or 267-1955, that's to the planning department.
but we'll send a note over to him that was brought up in this meeting. But if you want to get immediate action, give him a holler. And I think what I understand is he is ready to make some change in street side code enforcement.
There's like 5 of them that say yoga on. And balloons too. Balloons are against the code. They need to stop,
Yep.
please.
Okay,
And I did
back
see
to,
people checking on
back to chapter
Saturday.
22.
Okay, yeah. Two things. One, the state park, this ad in the state park, if the vendor, they'll let a vendor come and deliver a chair, that the person who's going to sit in the chair needs to be there. That's, if it's good enough for the state park, it should be good enough for us. The other thing is starting this process early is important, but I know that they always want the information at the end of the year. I don't know if there's any way to move it back, move it back a meeting or two in terms of the DCC. In other words, if we could go to if the next TDC meeting, we have to have another meeting before we recommend your changes to the TDC.
No, I would think that at our September meeting, we would finalize that, and then it would go to the October meeting, to the TDC, and then directly to the BCC in their first meeting in October. So that'd be the first chance they get to look at it. And I think that would be the best time, considering that this is an election year.
The election is November. So we would know where they stand on this issue before the election.
Possible. But I mean, the indication I get is that the commissioners are understanding that there are, some issues on the beach, and that some of the Chapter 22 items need to be revisited and considered. So
That's good. I know that 2 years ago
the last couple of years, I've got it to them in January, and that's because of the compilation efforts we had and the meeting processes. I was just late in getting to the TDC. This year, we understand exactly when it needs to be. In October, we'll actually be 3 months earlier than we were before. So I think that October is plenty of time, and it'll still be fresh on people's memories. And we will have started the new fiscal year, and I think that'll be the opportunity time to, and that's what they've asked for. So, okay, any more? All right, appreciate the input on that. If you got any more in the near future, send them to me. And like I said, at our next meeting, I'll bring what we'll consider the draft copy of recommendations for consideration for that chapter. Okay, old business, design guide review revisions. Last meeting, we looked at our design guide. Staff with TDC had already looked at it and made a few changes. One of the biggest ones is that our marketing department felt that this product should be the consultant's product and not a Visit South Walton product, so we have removed our logos. The rest of it, a few format changes, no content changes.
Yeah, there's still a bunch of spelling errors.
Is there some more? Okay.
You want me to show you?
Have you?
I already did them on this.
I didn't
but
bring
they
them,
get
so I
transferred
didn't think
on
you're
this.
here, but I got them, yes.
The ones that I did on my copy and brought over have not all been changed on this. For example, page 1 still says "see priest" instead of "see crest." Page 1, under the 16 beach communities, far away, just above Inlet Beach, it says "see priest" instead. That's still, I'm an editor, I'm sorry, it's just one of the things.
No.
Page 3, received is still spelled wrong.
Elaine, you still have that copy? I gave you back your copy, didn't
Yeah, I
you?
still
Okay.
have
Okay. All right.
There's a number of them, I just see that kind of stuff.
No, I'm glad you look at it. I haven't looked that close at it.
But if we put it, I'm a stickler for, like, if you're putting out a professional product.
I agree.
you have to have you spell it.
Oh, I agree with you. I agree.
And your punctuation marks.
Okay. You have all that marked on
I
your.
do.
If you'll give it to Stacy, we'll make sure that it goes straight to the person.
Okay.
Okay?
Sure.
Lee and I will provide yours on that too.
Okay?
And you want me to just run by a couple of thoughts that were beyond just typos?
Yes.
Now,
Yep.
the one thing that I thought it was great as well, the only thing on page B-2, I thought under the wood and Pakistan fencing, the 2 photographs at the bottom did not seem to really kind of go along with what I heard being feedback being given in the workshops. And even if you look on page B-1, it says under dues, it says wood panel with tabby coquina columns. And these 2 photos, the first 4, I can see that. Except for, not exactly wood, but I think they're in keeping with the intent. The bottom 2 just look light, so when you see or an old warford or something,
Yeah.
I just don't think they are in keeping with the intent.
Okay?
The last thing I want to do is give, the wrong idea of what. And then the other thing I think, if I remember correctly, that I said was that, and this may just be a next step, but I really feel it should be somehow codified, either added to the land development code, maybe a section on public spaces if it's not already there, or something. I would hate, this is supposed to be in place for decades, and I would hate to see it over time just get on a shelf somewhere, it lose application.
Okay.
If it's in our codes, it's much more likely, because the county staff changes, elected officials change over
Right.
time, so I'm not criticizing, I'm just saying with transition, things can get lost if they're not actually in our regulations and codes.
Okay. Anything else?
Well, one other thing I just remembered, and I gotta remember what page it was on, but it was about the outdoor, the art and bus stops. Yeah, D dash before and after, 4, yes. This may be a little bit nitpicky, but I just like things to make a lot of sense. And the pictures on the bottom, I don't know that you would ever put, that's the eastern intersection of 98 and 38. And I don't know that you would ever put a bus stop where a bus would have to stop in a turn lane right before an incredibly busy intersection. I just think
Yep.
that the example, I know this is just an example, it's a Photoshop photo, but it should be realistic. And even the one above it, this intersection has been completely redone after these photos were taken.
Yep.
So there's landscaping out there, there's a different parking lot, so I just think, I like the before and after, I just think it would be better if they chose another spot where those things kind of made more sense.
Okay. Any other?
I sent a bunch of typo stuff to Stacy's.
Okay.
We have breakdown communications somewhere. That the March 26th, it goes to the Lake Advisory Board, where the committee wrote a letter to this committee that was never delivered. It goes to the Lake Advisory Board supports the movement toward a more aesthetically pleasing and architecturally significant design of future road and multi-use bridges over the coast of the lakes. We propose using architects and designers to enhance the visual connection to the lakes. We thank you for considering our recommendations. This should have included the bridges.
Okay.
And I know why it didn't, but, it's a shame that we didn't spend any money talking about our bridges.
Okay. I think everybody understands the position on that, both all personal and committee-wise and why it wasn't.
I mean, we talked about it, and brought it never was delivered in this department. I just found it,
Yeah. Let's take a look.
March 25th, it's got draft written all over, so,
Of
We have a lot of
2015.
letters like this that were never delivered anywhere.
But it was 2015.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
It was supposed to come to this meeting.
And we had a lot of discussion, my position on bridges and
Yeah.
state improvements.
Well, one thing we've done with this guy is, we needed a starting place so that as we go through these destination improvements, we can, develop a theme or I don't want to say a standard, but a concept that is recurring. And part of our contract with this contractor was that we would receive documents that we can manipulate, okay? And so what I would see in 2 years from when we started this, so possibly, sometime next year, we have another session of this because there might be some changes, of how when things progress, we might say, oh, well, that looked good then, maybe we need to tweak it a little bit. All right, so we have that ability to do that. And I think that at that time, other components can be added. And, of course, it takes, movement, by boards, first grassroots boards, advisory boards, and then on up. So, don't think that it's out. And there's also, just because it's in here, doesn't mean it can't be addressed in a different way. Like I told our other former committee member who was very passionate about the bridges that, just because we don't necessarily address it here, doesn't mean it can't be addressed. We just got to make sure that if you're passionate about it, then you address it at the right time.
Right.
And at the construction RFP is not the right time. At the qualifications for the engineering firm is the right time, before the project gets started. And so that you can say, we need that bridge to look different than Jersey barriers. And so then it's not a big deal, because when you do the construction RFP, you redesign, more money, you stop the construction process, you stop a lot of the, things that have already been in planning for, a year and a half.
Let's take, Big Redfish Lake. You're gonna redo that bridge at some point in time, not too distant future.
It's, once again, it's already
So
designed.
that's already designed, so we got, what happened, how come I guess I understand what happened. I understand we didn't do it right, but we didn't know we were gonna replace that bridge, so it fell down, did we?
No, I think there's a schedule of
There was
replacement.
a schedule on it?
Yeah.
That's why we made the advisement. See, we made the advisement, it was never delivered.
Right.
And we made the advisement at the right time, but it was never delivered.
And Cliff Miller was at our last meeting, our talking, and
Right.
he said that it was still time to change. Cliff is supportive of this, the
Yeah.
engineers that are designing it.
He has ideas,
I think it can be done.
I'll check with Public Works and see where we are on that, and see if there's still opportunity. Maybe there is. And then I'll get the schedule of when the next one's going to be replaced, and we'll make sure that we have opportunity.
And I think you can retrofit a lot of them. This, if you're not changing the structure, you're just improving the aesthetics, you can retrofit existing bridges that you don't necessarily, it's just a matter of prioritizing it and being willing to spend the funding.
Correct.
And it's not that expensive, according to Cliff. I mean, fixing them.
But the initial expenditure didn't, you have to think about ongoing maintenance of it.
Let's just take, once again, Big Redfish, because we know it's coming, but it's what, a year? When is it coming?
I believe they're going to start
It's a
it,
law, isn't it?
yeah.
That's,
I mean,
It's too late for break.
I'll inquire Public Works, I get a schedule of where we are with, immediate projects and where we are in the future, and we'll make sure that I'll send it out to you via email on the next meeting, and we'll see, but, I'm not a part of this right now, so let's discuss this. Yes, ma'am.
Brian, one last thing, I'm sorry for you were here talking about it as well, and this is actually the most important, for me, it was my biggest part with the design guide. When it comes to signage, it's talking about directional signage on page E1. At the end of the paragraph, it says, could be utilized as long as there is a consistent design element throughout that would visually tie the signage together. And then if you look at page E3, directional signage with all the examples, it gives several completely different looking examples. And I kind of thought that one of the points of this process was to come up with a common design look. And I think signage is one of our the most important elements of this. So I guess my question, maybe it's a next step, but if there's going to be signage constructed before that next step, it concerns me. I think we need to pick a design. And even if all the signs don't look exactly the same, there's a common theme. These examples are all totally different from each other for the most part. And I think some of these examples are not in keeping with the look of our area.
Yep.
And I'm talking about directional signage, not the internal signage.
If you remember, this section was had a lot of discussion because of the desire for the different communities to keep their uniqueness.
But this is directional signage. This is streets and
Yeah.
the district signage is what the communities have. Now, do we have many communities that are customizing their street signs and stop signs and a lot of them? I know a
Watercolor,
couple.
yeah, Rosemary, watercolor. Seaside has, I'm sure they went through a process where they picked out
We're a lot more than the 5 or 6 large planned communities here. I think if they've already done it and it looks good, then let them keep it, but everything going forward that the county and the TDC is doing, which is my impression of what this is, I think there needs to be a consistent thing, consistent look.
I agree. And, keep in mind that this was a guideline to pick out or to put us in a theme, and then when the specific projects came on board, there would, of course, be more discussion. But you're right, in the public spaces, along our multi-use path in between communities, it all needs to be the same. We actually did a good effort of that at one point. If you remember the trail signs we had, they're now somewhat omitted in various places for different reasons. I agree that all that needs to be consistent, and our regional beach accesses, it ought to all be consistent. We started off with the hoops, we're continuing on with that. Is the best. We'll kind of morphed out of a previous purchase that people didn't like. They were able to be repurposed into something more palatable.
I commend you for making that list.
So anyway, I understand what you're saying, and as we move forward with making these decisions in the FY17, I have about 100 grand in for multi-use path signage, and I would expect us as a body to be the start of getting standardized sign on that multi-use path, as well as standardized multi-use path. Duly noted what you're talking about, the signs. Okay. Anything else? We're running a little bit long, so we'll make these changes, and we'll go back through it real good, make sure that your copy of Lane, grammatical errors, and get that fixed up. All right. Anything else on the design guide? Once again, this will then go to the TDC at the August meeting. I'm sure they'll have a few changes they want to make. Or they might say, gosh, it's been through staff, it's been through committee, looks good. One thing we didn't want to change too much was the actual content, because that content was decided by the public workshops. But we do recognize, as from the start, this was to get us moving in one direction, and that it wasn't to identify specific items. It was to identify, themes to pick from. So I think they did a good job on that. And, the next couple of years, we've got a lot of public spaces that we're redoing, and we'll start incorporating this stuff. Okay, project updates. Public space design trail, we just talked about it. Like I said, we second draft submitted today, scheduled to be submitted to TDC on August 2nd. We'll make these immediate changes and have a cleaned up copy ready for them. Coastal Dune Lakes, Melinda Gates is in charge of that for us. She has come back off maternity leave. She has to take care of her regular job before she can get back to us, but we'll get these finished up here, I don't predict by the end of the summer. And so it'll be a good fall project, and we'll be in good shape starting next year. Multi-use pass, Graven Beach Western Lake. Like I said earlier in our meeting, we received our bids yesterday for phase 1. The responsible bidder was at 1.44 million. Slightly out of budget, but we have some reserve funds we can use for it. That'll go to the BCC for recommendation to award on the 12th, and they'll get started on that. There's part of the contract is, that'll get started on immediately. Phase 2, we had our intake meeting for the RFP for construction Tuesday, and it is RFP is scheduled to be issued on August 9th. It'll be about a 3-week date. They'll take in bids somewhere around the 1st of September, and then they'll be reviewed, vetted, and then sent to BCC for approval. And the construction on that section will start, probably early October. Both sides being finished up by, hopefully end of the year, definitely before spring break of next year. Our Highway 98 to 38 West connector on hold pending reclassification of that highway. The stormwater drainage projects that we started at 395 on the east and west side of it. We have completed the major portion of the western side of it. We still have some aprons to do at the junctions of the roads. We'll start those after the summer season. East of 395, that has been incorporated into that intersection redesign. They don't expect to start construction on that until sometime next year. There will be review opportunities at BCC meetings during the fall and early spring of that intersection design, so pay attention to the meeting schedules to make sure you can get your thoughts considered on that portion of the project. Our section of it is very simple. We're putting in some exfiltration systems water off the bike path and distribute it into exfiltration pipes that go down those north-south roads. And then eventually that whole system will be connected down into the dip on 395 at the Western Lake head. 38 parking, like I said, the 6% design plans were approved on June 14th. We'll have 9% by the August meeting. Should be, once again, we're now in the final stage of design development. Don't expect any big changes. Should be able to get that construction RFP out shortly after that and get started in September on construction of those parking spaces. A good majority of them are included in the phase 2 of the Western Lake Bridge project. Great Beach Restroom, FDEP, still evaluating our revised land management plan. I don't see any movement on this happening this year. NRDA Phase 3, we have 100% plans on all the projects. They'll be going out for RFP for construction, and we'll start those after first of the year. Once again, we are strictly the recipient of projects that are being completely administrated by FDEP. Here's our Palms of Dune Allen. This will be on the west side, in between Palms of Dune Allen and Vizcaya. And it'll be very similar to the one that's called Lake Causeway, which is on the west side of Vizcaya, except that it will not have any parking associated with it. This is our Bay Ranchettes. We've all seen this, small piece of land we own. It'll have a picnic area and a canoe kayak launch with a T-pier.
Are there facilities there? Excuse me.
No, ma'am.
So we'll have no signage to that park at all?
No what?
Signage, telling people where it is, how to get there?
Yeah, there'll be some signage. Well, since the road that it's on is not connected to the feeder road off of 98, there won't be any signage on 98, but there will be some signage on Bay Drive.
Can we do some signage for Kellogg now? Because Ms. Kellogg didn't want that to be a secret garden, she wanted to be used.
Yeah, the problem is FDOT requires that it be on the road, like Blue Mountain Beach, for instance. Okay, we have signage on Highway 98 for that, because you turn on that road, it's at the end of that road. It's on that road.
Okay.
And that's the problem with Kellogg Park is 331 is FDOT road, because we've asked to put signage out there. And unless it's on that road, which it's not, you have to go down Nelly and then turn right. So they do have some, exceptions to it. As you know, we're doing a beautification project on 331. Let me inquire to see if there's some opportunities to put some directional signage for a park like that.
If we have to put bathrooms there, it's signage, we need to put bathrooms there.
Yeah. Once again, it's not the issue of facilities, it's
Right, that's right.
it's proximity on the feeder road.
Because I know the TDC is encouraging for ecotourism,
Mhm.
and that park is underutilized because it's a secret, nobody knows about it.
I've gotten a lot of traffic on that recently. I don't know if you know what happened to it, but it was taken out of our control last year looks like it's coming back under our control. So we'll do a few changes to the maintenance of it. I think one of the biggest things is cleaning up the parking lot associated with the bay portion of it. And then Chad Holly is a county road. We can put some signs on it.
Okay, good.
So we could do that. And then I have an idea of a canoe trail. One of the email traffic we received recently is Audubon Society has some money earmarked for it, but it has to be an educational component. And I suggested a canoe trail combined with a birding trail. We have our other parks at Hagen Park, Legion Park, Cessna, and then that, and then with our new Bay Ranchettes would be a nice little canoe trip.
I have a lot of people asking me,
Yeah.
why don't they do something, to that park? Because permission for that park, for
I made a-
donate to the county or not doing?
Yeah, I made a pitch to get all the parks south of the bay under our control. So that we're in a better opportunity to maintain them and market them.
When is this one going to be?
Bay Ranchettes will be built this fall. Be in service before spring break. Once again, FDEP administrative, but they've ironed out any budget issues. They've got final designs, and they have received all their environmental permits. So that would really should be out for RFP for construction here shortly. Any questions? Okay. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
Public comment.
Questions about projects?
I'm sorry, I meant,
Ready to go?
yes, public comments.
We're talking about this.
I'm sorry,
What
yes,
about council comments?
I'm sorry.
I just wanted to, so you can tell us what this is, just
That is our daily pickup of leave no trace items,
okay.
as diagrammed by the month. You'll notice it's by the day. And as you see, as we picked up through May and June, it really got hot. So
What happens to those items? What do people have?
those items are taken to the landfill, Public Works Complex, where they are recycled.
And no dumpster diving is allowed.
Last year, we allowed people to come get them. It was not feasible, and it was very confrontational. The ordinance reads that they're considered abandoned, and the county can dispose of them as they see fit. And so the way they see fit is they go through a recycling program.
The questions have mainly been, are they recycled or are they just put in the landfill? So that's
No.
the perfect.
They're actually recycled.
Any great rack where this is going in the welcome center?
Yep.
Yes, please, great rack.
Okay, it's our pilot project right now, our pilot, that's what we're calling it. We did 10,000 of them, they're being distributed out at Topsail where the parking is, and also at the visitor center and at just a couple places around town right now. Hopefully, if it's successful, we'll be able to get funding to grant a much larger quantity. But you can see on there, there's a coupon tracking so that we can hopefully drive more people into the visitor center to get more in-depth information.
Discount if you go there? Wow.
There's a discount if you shop online, if you come into the visitor center with a free dinner. So, if anybody would like some, do please let me know. I'm Gayla.
Okay, sir. I'll take this one.
Good.
Great job, thank you, Gail.
I would like to make a comment.
Council comments.
I just want to bring to the committee's attention that on Wednesday, June 29th, it was published in Northwest Florida Daily News that the Emerald Coast puts 3 in the top 20 of TripAdvisor's most popular summer vacation rental spots. And the 3 that came from the Emerald Coast, number 1 was Panama City Beach, number 2 was Destin, and number 3 was Fort Walton Beach. Number 4, and 20 on the list of the best 25, was Miramar Beach.
Awesome.
So I just want you to know that we're doing a good job out there.
Good deal. Any more council comments? No, public comments?
I just wanted to mention a couple of things. On the business parking, this came up, and I love the idea that you all put some emphasis on businesses providing enough parking. I know they're looking at some more things like that with the land development plan. I hope they implement them. I went to Goat Feathers not too long ago, and they're one of the few businesses around here that truly has enough parking of their own for their clients that are at the restaurant. There was exactly one space left that we were able to get, and all the rest of the spaces just about were taken up by beachgoers. There were hardly any people in Goat Feathers, and yet the parking lot was completely full. And so I asked them about it, and they said they're beachgoers. And so, there's kind of a catch-22 here. You've got you've got a set of business owners that provide parking, and because they happen to be near the beach, beachgoers use it. And then you've got another set that they don't provide enough parking for their own people, their own guests, customers, whatever you want to call them. And so those are taking up spaces that could otherwise be used by beachgoers. It's a catch-22, but I love the transportation parking thing. I couldn't be more proud of you, Lee, if I were your own mother, for really pushing that one. Anyway, then the other thing is, you heard, I'm sure, loud and clear, like I did at the last BCC meeting, that we need more beach code enforcement personnel. I hope, Brian, that you are going to put in a request for more code enforcement people. What was it, every half mile or something like that? I'm like, okay, let's work on that. And as you've already noted, there's been lots of backlash about vendors on social media. I'm guessing you all keep up with that kind of thing. And it's had a trickle-down effect, too, because not only are people upset about beach vendors having a 50% share of the public beach, about the ghost setups or whatever you want to call them, but now, because of that, everybody is starting to want to rush to the beach first thing in the morning and reserve a spot. Mm-hmm. And people who have beachfront homes, I'm now noting, are having to rush out at 7 o'clock in the morning to stake out any room in front of their homes. So it's the trickle-down effect is that we've got tons of chairs, umbrellas, tents, blah, blah, blah on the beach, and nobody is sitting down there. I mean, it just cracks me up when I look out and I see all these setups. And there'll be 3 fishermen on the beach, and yet there's all these chairs and umbrellas on for the people. But it is a trickle-down effect. And I hope that this committee, since you have valuable input, will really focus on how to get the vendor stuff under control. It is a service that's needed, no question. But
you're right. It's just that race to the water's edge, which really creates
it's just crazy. And I'm all for people being on the beach, enjoying the beach. Mm-hmm. But there's a difference between setting up a campsite that you're going to enjoy sometime during the day, maybe, for a few hours, but it sits there from 7 a.m. till 7 p.m. or 8 p.m. That's not enjoying the beach. That's reserving the beach. Right. And that's a whole different thing.
That's why I spent 13 hours, because I got my spot early and knew I had to stay. And there I was. Had prime location.
But see, I think the trickle-down effect will work in reverse.
That's right.
If we have a beach management plan, people say, I don't have to do it because,
Right.
I totally agree with you, Kurt. I really do. And then one last thing, and this may mean with a resounding no, but there are so many issues to deal with. And, BCC meets twice a month. But, these committees, are you all opposed to meeting once a month? I mean, I know you've got a lot of meetings, I really do get it, but when you only have meetings every other month, and heaven forbid that then you don't end up with a quorum somehow, you have such limited windows to try to discuss and make decisions that then have to go to a TDC meeting, and they're not as frequent, obviously, as BCC. It's just, it really does slow down how quickly you can.
It does,
change
you
the
know.
BCC.
We need to think of ourselves as a long-term advisory committee, so we shouldn't be trying to make short-term, proposals. And I understand what you're saying, and so, but, you notice we reschedule our meetings so that we now have time to get them on to the next TDC meeting. So we meet this month, TDC meetings August 2nd or 9th, or when is it? 2nd. And then the BCC meeting will make the very next BCC meeting. So we have shortened up, we just, as far as not having that lag of 3 months, we don't have a lag of a month now. And now, I get what you're saying, but I really think we need to think of ourselves as long-term advisory suggestions. In other words, we need to be way out in front of what we want to get done next year, which I think we are. But the other thing is it's completely volunteer, and we had this year was a new year, and I wouldn't say struggled, but we didn't have as many applicants as I'd like to have. People aren't running to be on our board, or this board. It wasn't like I had to turn people away too much. I had a few. I'd like to have, half a dozen people, 2 dozen people apply for it, and that means we got.
It was like you're the only one that so you had to give me the job, right?
No, I had a few people. Like I said, I had to interview. Lane got the phone call. She was like, "Oh, let's interview." I was like, "Sure."
No matter what you say, you're in.
Yeah. But anyway, we can. I'll discuss with my boss, see what he thinks about that. And I think the thing is that 2 months was considered a good time. We just really need to be out in front of long-term decisions and not try to make short-term behavior change.
With our coastal dune lake advisory board, what we do is if we have an issue that is, got to be heard, then we have a way to add a meeting.
Mm-hmm.
We can alter our schedule, which we have done this coming month.
Yeah.
Can I say something about the beach vendors?
Yes, ma'am.
You and I have talked about this, and I think everybody's kind of lost sight of what beach vendor intention was many years ago. The purpose of that was for One Seagull Place, Beachcrest, those large areas, to have a vendor that vended in front of those large areas to control that. And as a matter of fact, in OSP, One Seagull Place, in their bylaws, there can only be so many setups per unit. And those units have to be rented for them to set up.
Yes, ma'am.
So in order, they get a report every week of what's rented, and then that's included in their HOA, and then that setup is set up. Now, I don't think that they're adhering to that the way they should be recently, but that was the whole intention of vendors.
Yes,
It was not so everybody could have a chair that they could rent anywhere they wanted it. You had to bring your own thing. If you weren't going to go to one of those places and provide a vendor, then you had to bring your own stuff, just period. That's what you had to do, and you knew it. But it's just become such mayhem. One thing that I know that is not being enforced, and I don't know that maybe the reason is it's buried in there, but the vendors who provide any kind of water sports equipment are required to have an attendant during the whole time that they are renting that equipment that is trained in CPR.
Yes, ma'am.
They are not doing that. They are not.
Okay.
Okay? You could go and go down the beach and check, and you would not find, I guarantee you would not find a CPR
Okay.
certified attendant.
Now, are you making sure that what you're classifying as a water sports rental?
Kayak, surfboard, stand-up paddleboard,
Okay.
anything that puts the person in the water. The chairs don't put the.
Is that what it says in the ordinance?
Well, I think it
Because-
names
because I-
kayaks, surfboards. I don't know that it names SUP because that was relatively new when this was originally written.
Right.
But I believe it just says water sports equipment and then names a few examples.
Okay.
But I don't believe that that's being enforced
Okay.
at all.
Let me-
The other thing the vendors do, and something y'all mentioned, is people are running down there and putting their setups up. Tourists and locals. What the beach vendors are doing is taking that stuff, throwing it to the side and putting their chairs out. Or they sit their chairs right on top of somebody's blanket just to say, see, I can do it. So that attitude is creating a lot of this problem in Flag.
Yes, ma'am.
So,
We're aware of that, and we know that that's, it's not acceptable behavior on any level. When we receive complaints about it, we go down, or if we have people there, we go by and try to diffuse the situation. Unfortunately, a lot of times that ends up with a condition that we can't diffuse because it has now gone into the realm of sheriff's.
exactly. And that's happening more often.
But what I do is when I do get those complaints, I call the business owner and explain to him, hey, listen, this is the complaint we received. I need for you to understand that on a public beach, your delivery permit does not give you exclusive use or preferred use of that beach. Now, on a specific vendor permitted area, once again, we're now talking about a piece of property that extends to the main high water line. They have where?
One cigarette place.
No,
Oh,
no, one cigarette place ends the total limit.
no.
So, the land out in front of that is county park, former BLM land that was transferred with 3 acres of property. And in that case, see, we also have the paragraph D8 that says, in order to vend there, you have to have different properties owners' written permission. So the vendor that does vend there he has the exclusive right to vend on that beach. He doesn't have the exclusive use of that beach.
Right. So they dictate over what you do, and they dictate other restrictions in order for him to have that permit, like limiting the number of setups.
Right. But the general public has 100% use of that beach. And if they get down there first, the vendor, is not supposed to move their equipment. You can't tell them they can move. And, part of this is the general public needs to make sure they understand their rights on the beach. And now I know that nobody wants to confront somebody. And if you see a beach vendor that looks official, you think, oh my God, he must know. But, we have a complaint system. And, complaints of that nature, I act on immediately. Either me or Jeff will call the business owner and say, hey, this is unacceptable behavior, and you need to correct it immediately. And usually it does correct. Yes, ma'am.
One last question. Do you have personnel on Saturdays and Sundays, like 12 hours or something?
Right now we have 3 code enforcement officers, and we cover the beach from 5:30 a.m. to 10 p.m. Okay, and I say we do it 7 days a week. But in reality, there are a few gaps in there. I don't like to publish the gaps because then people say, "Oh, there's no code enforcement by here." Now, I have 2 new guys that'll be starting within 2 weeks. It'll take me about 2 weeks to get those guys trained. I already have all their equipment, so they are ready to hit the beach. And when we have that, we will not have any gaps. We'll be able to cover it. I said we'll have a code enforcement person on duty from 5:30 a.m. to 10 p.m. 7 days a week. And in a lot of cases, we'll have more than one.
And is there a number to call for stuff left on the beach overnight?
Yes, ma'am. You can call my office. You have that number.
Well, now, it's only during the day that I'm talking about. Is there an individual
What's,
that can be called
yeah.
if there's something set up at 10 o'clock?
What's code enforcement's office number?
626-0000.
You talking about our codes?
Yeah, I'm talking about picking up stuff left.
Jeff's
on the beach.
number is a cell phone number, which is,
No, his office number that transfers to his cell phone number after hours.
I don't know off the top of my head.
I'll send you that number. It's
622-7806 is the number that I have.
That's Jeff McVeigh's.
That's
So,
one.
well, what I was really thinking was more like, there's somebody assigned every night that goes and picks up all the stuff on the
They are, there is, but we're not.
You
no,
don't want there to be a number that forwards to that
We're
individual.
not dispatch oriented. We attempt to get, all the beach every night, and in reality, sometimes we only get half the beach.
Yeah.
And part of that reason, there's a lot of dynamics to it. Some of it is just simply the head and load. As you notice in that graph, we're picking up a lot of items off the beach every night now. And normally, word would get around that, hey, you can't do that. And it starts decreasing about mid-July. We'll start seeing a decrease because people are telling everybody else. Other things that prohibit us is coastal dune lake outfalls that are broken open. It can also be as simple as our guy's sick. We have one guy each night that does this work. And if they're efficient, they start running the beach and they progress, and depending on how much stuff there is, but and also it's the condition of stuff. Sometimes we find tents that people actually did fold them up, they just left them on the beach. It's very easy to chuck that in the back of a truck. When you got one of these 12x12s, it's in an open position with the mesh on it. They don't always fold up easily, and they don't cut up easily. And we've had a couple of accidents, so we got a kind of protocol of how we take them apart, so that we don't get hurt. Because that's another thing. If one of our code enforcement guys got cut, 11 o'clock at night, and pretty bad cut, and he's out by himself. If it's really bad, and there's no contact. Right now, we don't have radios that connect us to law enforcement agencies. We have phone calls, and we're working on getting radios so we're all connected. But there's a lot of dynamics that dictate whether we get all the beach or half the beach or a portion.
Chairman, Vice President would like to make a motion to adjourn.
Can I make, I'm sorry, I have to
Okay.
make a little correction. The number that you gave earlier, is actually John Rubin's
Yeah,
office number.
it's
I apologize, it's the number I had in my phone, so glad you clarified.
Lisa will send you the number. It's close to our
Yeah.
number. It's whatever.
I have Jeff's.
It's
I
one
have
digit off my
Jeff's.
number.
It's no, I don't need it. I have Jeff's, if that's who's in there.
Yeah.
Thank you, Jeff.
But we have an office number that rings to Jeff's phone after hours.
Oh,
And so,
I did.
yeah. Okay. Any more comments, public comments? Everybody wore out? Do we have a motion to adjourn?
I'm already.
Appreciate everybody's patience and everybody's input. Good meeting.
And we're still being recorded.
If you had to usurp the Vice President's role in this meeting, we would not go into the third hour.
I'm gonna be out of town for a few days, going to Alaska.
Awesome. Good for you, man.
This is the new one. And what I did was.
Take care of your motorcycle while you're gone?
I grabbed things that are still there. There's just a few stuff. Punctuation.
Yes, ma'am. I do.
And my team
It's,
has.
That got disconnected.
This is just a whole team, this is a grammar, a team has. Anyway, this is the new version, so I'll take somebody else's clean copy and you can have this instead of making a million copies of it. It's not on every page, it's just a few.
Yeah, Brant should have an extra copy.
Yeah, I mean, or I don't even need it, right?
Stop, yes. Stop.
I did. It's Hong Kong and
No, but I wasn't.